Do you have any lingering doubts as to the existence of angels? Well, I think we can put some of those to rest today. Hi, it's Cheryl Sitz, welcoming you to another episode of Exploring Possibilities. Since 2012, we've been podcasting enlightening, uplifting, empowering conversations, all designed to help you remember who you are. All of these can be found at journeyofpossibilities.com, with new shows airing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and youtube.com/Cheryl Sitz. If you like what you hear, show us a little love so we can keep doing this for you. Every bit helps at journeyofpossibilities.com/support. We'll be right back in just a moment with Keith Leon S.
Hi, I'm Mario Rosales. I am the producer of Exploring Possibilities. I actually do IT work. I do website design. I do remote support. You know, one of the things that I've been having recently, I've been working with people that are on Wix. And at the beginning, even I had the idea that Wix wasn't that powerful. But as I started working with it, I found out that there is so much more in there that we are not taking advantage of. We're not taking advantage of its database functionality. We're not taking advantage of their autoresponders. And a lot of this comes included for free in some of their packages. I've learned the system very well to the point that I can train you on how to do it. Or if you ask me to do some complicated task, I can design it for you within Wix. Then after I'm done, I give you the training on how to use it. And then if you have any troubles, you can always call me. Thank you. I am Mario Rosales, and you can reach me at mariorosales.com. Let me help you out wherever I can. Thanks.
Keith Leon S. is an award-winning best-selling author, international speaker, and book publisher. His latest, Walking with My Angels, A True Story, with foreword by Chicken Soup for the Soul's Jack Canfield, is the subject of today's conversation. You can get your copy of this fabulous book using a link found on the description of this podcast, and a small affiliate fee will come back to us in support of the show. Keith has appeared on national radio and television broadcasts, and now he and his team help other people get their mission and message published quickly through Leon Smith Publishing. You'll find him online at leonsmithpublishing.com. And he joins us now. Hi, Keith.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing so well, thank you. And thank you for taking the time to connect with us today around a really special book.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, my goodness. I read a lot of books for this show, and once in a while, I get a real storyteller, and that's what you are. You told a story that moved me in so many ways that I hardly know where to start. Your life story. What a life you've lived.
That is a fact. I think I've lived, 8 so far?
So it says, yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with the idea that we're here to talk about angels in this book, and you've been hearing them basically your whole life. How do you define an angel? Do you know that they're angels for sure?
Yeah, well, you know that my guardian angel started speaking to me when I was a child, and I shared these stories on many interviews. And I remember a psychologist once said, "Now I have to put on my psychology hat. How do you know that this voice wasn't, yourself talking to you because you didn't have a parent that was there for you. You were missing so many things." And I said, well, this voice that came to me kept me out of harm's way, like literally saved me from being molested around the corner from my house by telling me exactly what to do. Like I fell off a cliff one time and I felt angels' hands lift me up back onto the cliff, back to safety. I mean, it's just usually when I hear that voice or get that answer, it's something that I had not previously been able to gain access to in my head. And then when I hear a voice and it's not my voice, then it's even clearer than that.
Yeah, you tell all of these stories in your book. It's beautiful how the stories unfold. I mean, you pretty much jump into one right off the bat, and then throughout the pages of the book, we experience along with you how these angels work with you throughout the days of your life and how they save your life. And you also introduce us to another concept, the Earthbound Angel.
Yeah. And the way that Earthbound Angel told me, he said, real Earthbound Angel. I said, what do you mean real Earthbound Angel? He said, well, people call people that do good deeds for each other an Earthbound Angel. But really what an Earthbound Angel is there are a number of us who were, he said, how can I say this? I was an etheric, entity, energy, and I came into this body. So it's referred to by some people as a walk-in, right? So he walked into this body, and now he is kind of like the angel in the old. There was an old TV series called Walking with an Angel, and I think that's what it was called, with Michael Landon. And he's in a body. He's assigned to certain people, me in this case, and they are assigned to certain people to get them to believe, and ultimately at some point in working with the person they're assigned to save their life, really keep them from leaving the earth before they were supposed to. Because he talked to me about predestination. There was a reason that I was here on the earth and things that I was here to accomplish, and the route that I was going and heading when we met, that I would have died before my time. So he was there to teach me, convince me, reveal my life purpose to me, and then at some point save my life. And he said, once I save your life, then you have to let me go, because I have to go and do it for someone else. So yeah, real Earthbound Angels are the ones who are assigned to certain people to work with them and to put them back on their path if they're straying, and keep them here until their predetermined expiration date. That's what he said.
And honestly, after reading about that, I think I had one of those. There was a point in my life where I was way lost in the partying, and this woman really did pull me back. And I think she was here to do it for several people. And it was amazing to watch how she would do that for us. And at one point, she just looked at me and she shook her head and she said, "Wrong choice, Cheryl. You're making the wrong choice," about a key decision in my life. And I went ahead and did it anyway. And she's like, "I can't stop you, but I promise you, you're making the wrong choice." Of course, I look back and I made the wrong choice, but you couldn't tell me a thing back then. You kind of went through that self-destructive stuff too, didn't you? And do you think that the angels are the reason that you made it through that? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. The things that I did to my body, when I think back on it, I'm like, I wouldn't have any clue how my body could withstand the abuse that I put it through. Like, how can a heart take that much without stopping? It just blows my mind how I'm even still walking the earth. But then when I think about all the other greater things that I saw that were even bigger than that, and it just brings me back to, oh, okay, well, I see how that could happen. All those other things happened, then surely I would be able to kind of be self-destructive to my body and make it to the other side if I'm here for this divine purpose. It was just like I got a pardon, if you will.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting how you then went on and came into the love story that you came into, how you manifested your love story, how you manifested your partner was a great part of the book as well. You speak to manifestation throughout the book. And we were just chatting before we started the show today about how you can kind of turn it on and turn it off. And that's pretty cool too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had 13 and a half years with my practice wife, which you'll read about in the book. I call her my practice wife because I learned what not to do in a relationship in the first book, in my first chapter of life. And but then when I decided that I wanted to search for my true mate, then we both did a similar process in that I created what I called the list, and she called hers a marketing plan. And we basically wrote down all the qualities that we wanted in our next mate and our last mate. And we both, strangely on the other side of the United States from each other, came to the realization that we needed to become all of the qualities that we had written ourselves. And we looked at the paper and said, no, I'm not all of that. Here are some things I need to work on. Did the work that we needed to do, became the list ourselves, and then we both put it away knowing that we would know when the other person was standing in front of us. So we just gave it to God, put it aside, and went about our everyday life. And she had gotten so relaxed about that even when I was standing in front of her, she didn't notice me till I kind of went, hey, right? Hey, over here. And told her my story of what I had done. And then she was like, oh, wait. And then she remembered her process and went down the list in her head and was like, oh my goodness, he is all of those things. Oh, okay. And so it took her a couple more weeks than me to know that I was the one she had written down and manifested.
Well, and one of the lines you said in the book, I highlighted so I would share it on the show. You asked yourself, how could I attract something that I am not myself? And
Mhm.
how many of us have done that? We sit down and we write this dream list of, oh, this is my dream partner. And some of those things we haven't even begun to work out for ourselves. So how would we attract what we're not, right?
Yeah. Well, I did a lot of interviews with people when I was young, and I didn't put that in the book, but I did a lot of interviews with people about certain topics. So one was, life after life. I talked to people who had left the planet and then came back into their bodies. So they had those near-death experiences. And another one was when I was really young, I talked to a whole bunch of old folks who had been together for like 50 years, 60 years, 45 years. And I just talked to them about who they were, and what I ultimately discovered was that on the outside, it was opposites attract, like people say. Like he didn't like to dance, but she did, and she liked theater, and he didn't. But when it came to qualities, like who they really were, they were always the same. Like attracts like when it comes to the qualities of who we truly are. And so that's why I looked at the list, kind of remembering that and saying, oh, like attracts like when it comes to the real stuff, qualities. So am I all of these qualities? No. There was a
Yeah.
couple things where I was just a little out of line, not there yet. And so I had to go to work and do the work that I needed to do to become the man that she deserved.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah, Mario and I are on a similar journey. It took me a little bit longer. You were saying it took her, a little bit of time. It took me a long time because I was so rejecting the idea that this was the kind of man for me, because I thought I knew what was best for me and what I wanted. And even though that had never worked out for me in the past, I was determined, by God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't it? Now I'm like, you know what? I think I do want to deserve you. Yeah, I think I'm ready to deserve you. I think I'm over that now. Took me a while, though. I'm pretty stubborn.
You and me both.
I want to talk about the intention that you put behind this book, because I think that's as important as the book itself. How often do we hear about people writing books with intentions, purpose for sending it out into the world? What was the intention behind this book for you?
Whew. Well, when you read in the book about a out-of-body experience that I had and met with all these entities, and like Jesus was there, and etheric beings, and ancestors and archangels, and they all told me my purpose in life and why I was here. And one of those things was I was going to write this book called Walking with My Angels, their title, not mine, and that it would be a story about my interactions and my connection to the etheric realm, and that there was a few promises that were made. And from that point on, they said, your voice heals. So whether you speak, whether you sing, if people come within the sound of your voice, healing happens. Remember that. They said, you'll write the book, and when you write the book, whoever holds the book in their hands will be raised to their next level of vibration. That's what they told me. So as a publisher, when I also remembered how many people they said would have this book in their hands, I was like, even as a publisher, I'm like, how do we reach that high of a number, right? But I realized two things. One was beautiful, is that if you hold it in your hands, you're raised to your next level of vibration. Then that means you didn't even have to read it. So if you buy the book, you put it on your table in the living room, every person that comes and says, hey, what's this book? And flips through it for a second and puts it back down, just received everything they were supposed to receive. That helps me get to reach a lot more people. And then somebody pointed out to me along the way that Kindle Reader is something that people hold in their hands, and that when people are on their laptops and they have that on their lap or in their hands, even if they did the look inside feature on the book, then they receive. And so I was like, that's how I get to that number, right?
Awesome.
1.5 million people, because it's not just he or she who reads the book, it holds in their hands. So that was pretty special. And so it was to live my life purpose. That's why I put the book out, to help people be raised to their next level of vibration, and ultimately to fulfill the promise that I made, which was to do this book when they told me to do it. And so that was a challenge from the time that I was told I would write this book till I finally got the yes, it was time, was a very long time. And hard for me to be patient for 22 years while I waited for that. But once I started writing the book and reliving the experiences that I wrote, I got clear pretty pretty quickly why they waited so long. Like a lot of the things that I write and say in this book, if I would have even 10, 15 years ago would have put this book out, they would like be, get the net, get him some medication, put him in a funny farm, but as the years passed, the few people that I chose to share these experiences with would say, yeah, oh, cool, that's inspiring. Nobody looked at me like, dude, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're nuts. Like, get the net, help this guy. He needs help. People are way more open to the possibilities now than ever before. So it was like a perfect time for this message.
And that's so important for us to remember. I'm finally, my book is really flowing through me now, and it's taken me a while, and I was beating myself up for that. But what I'm realizing now that it's flowing is it flows at a point when I'm ready to really tell the story in the best possible way that I can tell it. I've healed a lot since I started thinking it was my time to tell that story. And I would have told a very different story. So it's true that timing's so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the timing and the place that you're in while you're writing it.
Yeah.
Everything is energy. So as some person who teaches people how to write books, that's one of the things that I do is like in our home study course, there's an affirmation. It's like a closed eye meditation that you listen to before you write that puts you in the perfect place to be a vessel and let it pour through you, right? So it's like how we're being while we're writing is captured on the page. And then I tell people to free form write, just spill everything out, even if it's something that you're like, I'm not sure that I want anybody to know this. It's like, write it anyway. And then after you finish your first pass, come back to the top and read it through one time. And that's where you do editing. And if you get to something that you're like, that was for me, not for them, you can pull the words out, but the energy of what you had written stays in. And I've said this to so many people in my courses, and they come back later and say, that's so true. Like, I pulled this piece out that was for me. And then people came up and said, I loved in the book when you said, and they would talk about the experience or the quality of what they had written but taken out, or even say some of the words that were taken out. And that really touched their heart, something that the author clearly knew was not in the book when it printed.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, but the quality of it was still there because everything is energy. So you can take the words out, but the essence and the energy is still there.
Absolutely. Well, there's a couple of things in your book that really jumped out at me. One of them was, and I believe this was the story of your Earthbound Angel that was driving around all the time with the gas tank broken in the car and didn't gas up for like forever, and the car never ran out of gas. That was a cool story.
That was another guy. His name was Larry. I worked with him at the car lot, and he was an angel in his own right, I'll tell you. But yeah, we were both worked at this car lot, and then we both quit, and so we had no source of income. So we started first painting curbs together, putting the address, the little design, and getting money for that, and that gave us just enough for food. Then we started painting bakeries, and we did all kinds of things together, but mostly what we did together was journeys, is what I would call it. He was the most incredibly sighted, gift of sight, people that I know. And so he took me on a few journeys and was there for me on a few of mine. When my Earthbound Angel assigned me to do a few things, he was right by my side to help me facilitate that, which remember the funeral service? That was one where he was there. And interestingly enough, at the end of the book, I propose a question where I talk about, so my Earthbound Angel, John, Larry, this other guy who appears later and saves my life at one point. I said, are they all one angel, or is it different? You make the call.
Right.
And so since then, when I was on my book tour for this book, I went out on the road for 6 months. And while I was out on the road, I opened up my Facebook account one evening, and there was a friend request said from Larry Wright. Now, there's a lot of Larry Wrights in the world, so I had searched and searched, but I couldn't find Larry Wright on Facebook. There was only thousands and thousands and thousands to choose from.
Yeah.
But my son's name is Timar, Timar, and that is a unique name. So he ultimately found my son on Facebook and said, "Hey, this is your father's friend, Larry." And so when I got the friend request, a lot of times people get, phishing scams and all of that. So I was just like, "Is this the Larry, right?" And he said, "You mean the one who?" And then he started to say things that were in the book, but he hadn't read it yet, right? And I said, "Yeah, great, let's get on the phone." And so we connected, and so I got to finally connect with Larry after all this time. And it was so beautiful because when I had him on the speakerphone, we were talking, and my wife was listening, and so he'd say, "Remember when?" And then he would say things that I wrote about in the book that you read about, and my wife was like, "Whoa," getting chills, showing me her arms, hair standing up, and then he'd even say like, "And remember when?" And he would say something that I had forgotten or not said in the book. And so it's amazing. We've been in contact ever since. But yeah, he's was an amazing part of that process.
There was just a rich cast of characters throughout your life and some incredible experiences. Do you mind if I bring up the story of stopping time and the accident that happened and then went in reverse? That just blew me away. I read that like 3 times. I was like, what?
Yeah. My best friend at the time, his name was Timar. He's the one that I named my kid after. And so for his 16th birthday, he got a 69 Mustang. Beautiful car. And he picked me up one night, and he wanted to show me like how fast it could go. And so we went to a place really right behind my house. There was this long strip of just straight road, and it was not a busy street, so there's hardly usually anybody on the street. So we went all the way up to the end, and then he turned around and he just punched it. And we're like 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. We're going 90 miles an hour. The light is starting to come at us. We can see the light out in the distance. So he's thinking, I better slow down. And he starts pumping the brakes, and nothing's happening. He's like, dude, no brakes. He's freaking out. I'm freaking out. He's pumping the brakes. There's a couple cars at the intersection. They're getting closer and closer. Finally, the car brakes lock up, and we slide up to the car that's in the right-hand lane in front of us. Then he swerves to miss that. So the car slides out to the left and hits there's a little island that has the power box that changes the light right there. So we slam into the power box. I hear glass break, metal ripple, and then boom, I'm off into what they call a life review. So I saw my life from the womb, and then being born, and then all the snapshots of the kind of important things and milestones that had happened in my life from birth all the way through that moment. So it's like, birthday party, this happened, that happened, and that time when I was bullied, that time when I was the bully, that time, just everything. Mm-hmm. And then we're speeding in the car, and then the glass breaks, and blah, blah, and all that happens. And then we come into that present moment, and then everything just froze. And then, like you said, everything just went in reverse, and blah, 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 and then I saw the whole movie in reverse, blah, 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 all the way back to the womb, and poof, then I came back into my awareness, and we were sitting in the 69 Mustang out of the intersection, kind of around the corner, sitting up next to the curb. And I look at my friend Timar, and he's like, dude, he goes, did you hear? And I go, glass break, metal ripple. He's like, yes. He's like, oh my God, my dad's going to kill me, because we know the car's totaled. So we get out of the car to do a damage check, and so he gets out of the car because it was on his side that we slammed. By the time I came around the car to see him, he's just shaking his head in disbelief because there's no damage whatsoever to the car. But the hubcap, the rear hubcap, is missing. So we look for the hubcap. It's in the middle of the intersection where the accident happened. We go to pick up the hubcap, and now nobody's around. Nobody. And this is a part that I didn't necessarily address in the book, but we feel like we jumped timelines because there was people there. There was a couple cars. And if you slam into an island, you get into a wreck, people come to your aid.
Yeah.
They would have been like, "Oh, are you okay?" or something. But nobody's there. It's like a ghost town. And so we just pick up the hubcap, and then we look, and on the little island, which is like a curbed island where the power box is, it's that old chunky asphalt that they used to have, not the really hard gray stuff now that we have, but there was this old chunky stuff that if you took a screwdriver and went, and you could put a gash in it because it was so soft. Well, that's what had happened. We looked at the island, and right next to the power box, there was a scrape in the curb that went diagonally from, about the bottom of a hubcap up and went right into the box. So to us, it was proof that it had happened, that we didn't make it up. And even after, for years until they replaced that island with the hard gray stuff, that was our reminder. Anytime I needed a reminder, I could walk 100 feet from my house and look at that chunk out of the curb and know that I was on a path and that I was spared that day.
That is such a wild story. And yet I sense the truth of it. I know the truth of it. You feel truth, you feel truth in your body. My body knows that that's a true story. And something similar happened years later where you're watching someone else get into an accident and time stops and reverses. So it didn't just happen to you. And
right.
That's just amazing how the angels work with you and through you and for you.
Yeah. Totally amazing.
It is amazing. So since you wrote the book, have you had any more instances come about that you're like, wow, that would be another chapter for the book if I were still writing the book?
Well, yeah, like by the time I wrote this book, I was like 7 times I should have died. But I've seen time reverse to keep me here. I've seen all these miracles happen. Well, it's actually 8 now, because not long after I wrote the book, I was speaking at an event in Texas, and we got an Airbnb, and so a house that we weren't used to, and we were upstairs, and I travel a lot, and so I kind of have a ritual that I get into the bed and then I pace off from the bed to the restroom, how far it is, because it's usually pitch dark and I'm in a place that I don't know. Once I kind of do that little walk back and forth, then it sets it into my memory and I know how many steps, kind of innately, because I just did that walk. So I did not do that, and so I got up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom, and I kind of walked to where I thought the door was, and then I took a right and headed toward the restroom, and then I put my hand out to the right and there was nothing there. So I was like, oh, cool, there's the doorway to the restroom. So I turned to the right and boldly stepped into the stairwell and just fell at warp speed, face first down the stairwell in pitch dark. And so it just happened so fast. So I'm falling face first quickly, and then I just hear louder than anything, put your arm out, like that. So I go, I put my arm out, and my arm caught in the spokes of, on the side of stairs, how there'll be those little kind of spokes with the wood on the top. So my arm caught in that and stopped me. And so I lay there for a little while, and then my arm hurt so bad. I went back up and didn't want to wake up my wife because I was going to speak the next morning. I wanted one of us to at least have sleep. So I kind of laid there for hours till the sun came up, milking that wound. And so once the sun came up and I told her about it, we went and we walked down the stairs, and the stairwell had all wall on the left and all wall on the right, until almost at the bottom of the staircase on the left, there was those spokes or, metal bars with the handrail. There was only 4 of those. And so my arm had caught in one of the only 4 available to stop me.
Wow.
And then that was at the bottom where then you take a left to go down the next little set of stairs. So right in front of me, those 4 was about another couple feet was another wall. And so had I not put my arm out and stopped, then I would have hit my head, neck at full speed on that wall, and I know would have broke my neck. I would have been gone. So it was just another demonstration, because that voice was so loud,
yeah.
so loud and jarring so much that I would just go, oh, and put my arm out.
And the timing was perfect.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
whoa, whoa, whoa. And then as much as it did really injure me, the beautiful thing was that the next day, the event that I was speaking at, which I did with my arm hanging down to the floor, but I'm here to be of service. I actually did speak, but as soon as I finished that, I kind of collapsed behind the table, and my wife, did the rest of the day for me. But it was actually a functional medical practitioners convention. So of all the places I could be the next day was, oh, here's a chiropractor who reset my body. Oh, here's the person that has the next cutting edge healing technology. Here's the one that's doing the, has the medicine that you can take that's not medicine, that's all, natural. And it was just like all the healing that I could ever want. Acupuncturist, Reiki,
Wow.
everybody, they were all there, and they all were just like, oh no, honey, come here, and just went to work on me. And so that really kicked in a very quick healing process. So it's like the blessing for the lesson, right?
Yeah. Yeah, really. Just the way your life unfolds is its own miracle, right? The interventions that come to save the day, and it's not for naught. You're actually willing to show up every day and say, how can I be of service? What's next? And that's, I think, an important thing to remember. If it sounds like you live such a charmed life, you're also doing your best to be of service in the world. And that makes all the difference.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where people say, oh, but you're special. That couldn't happen for me. You're special. You have all these angels. And I'm like, well, it took all of that to get me to believe, right?
Yeah.
My head was so thick, and I was like, nah, I'd see a miracle on Monday, and by Tuesday be like, nah, I made that up. So that's what it took. However, the everyday practice of tuning into my inner guidance system, angels, spirit, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, right? It doesn't care what you call it as long as you call it. And that's the point that I teach in my live events, is that it's you. You are the answer you've been searching for, and that we are made up of the energy where we came from. So some people call that God or energy or universe. We're made up of that stuff. And so just because we chose to jump in this body and try on this experience does not mean that we're disconnected from the source we came from. It's quite the opposite. We have a direct connection to source. So I like to teach people to sit, ask, and listen. Sounds simple. A lot of us sitting, meditating, right? Asking, praying. Yeah, okay, sit, ask. Now, listen part is the most important part, and that's the part that I think that I excel in, where a lot of people could use some work, right? And that is that when we listen, it's best to listen for the answer to the one question that you asked until you receive the answer, no matter how long that is. So one time I sat waiting for 2 weeks for the answer to one question, but the answer I got completely changed my life and my business forever, because I was willing to sit there and do nothing but ask that question for 2 weeks. But maybe you don't have 2 weeks and you ask a question and now you have to get up and go out. Then spin that one question as your mantra over and over as much as you can remember all day until you receive the answer to the one question before you move on to the next. And that is what I have found to be the way to receive divine guidance and to really important questions. And then to speak to what you asked for earlier, I know when it's spirit, God, universe, or angels that gave me that answer, because I was not able to get the answer to that question when little Keith was trying to get the answer, right? When my ego, my mind was trying to get the answer, I couldn't get it, which is why then I asked source and then stayed in the question till I received the answer. And should you want to play with the angels to get the answers to your question, that's what we do at the end of the book. Is I love to teach folks that we all have at least one angel with us. So that's our guardian angel, and that's not just a clever name. Guardian angel is to get you to your predetermined expiration date. They're supposed to make sure you make it to the time you promised you would be here until. And with all planes, trains, automobiles, bullets, all the ways that we could we could be gone so quickly these days, they're on high watch.
Yes.
So they're with us all the time. They have two jobs. love you unconditionally, get you to your predetermined expiration date. That's the only two jobs they have. And that's all they're doing unless you ask them to do more, because we have free will. So they can't do anything else unless we ask them. But trust me, they're bored out of their mind just walking around, keeping you, I love you and I'm keeping you safe till your expiration date. Let's play. So at the end of the book, I give you like an evocation. I like to call it an invitation, where you just say, hey, guardian angel, I would love it if you would help me receive answers to my questions. If you could help me with that process. And so I want you to know that I am open to hearing your voice. I'm open to having you show me the answer in many different ways, and kind of name all the ways you can think of. So if I ask a question and I go out and turn the radio on and the first song I hear, the lyrics are the answer to the question, I'll know that it's you. If a friend of mine walks up and says, you know what, I don't know why I'm supposed to say this, and then they tell you the answer to the question, that's you, right? And so think of all the ways that you would be open to hearing the answers, and then watch how they start showing you the answers. And your pure intention of asking a question and then focusing on receiving the answer, now you're going to not only notice the answer, how they're answering that question, but you may then start to notice other times where they had answered you and you just didn't notice. It just whizzed by because you weren't focused. You asked the question, and then if you're an entrepreneur like me, maybe the next shiny thing came along and you forgot about the question altogether. But they love to be of service. Just like I love to be of service, so does your angel, so does God, Spirit, Universe. So it's all about sitting, asking, and more importantly, listening.
Great insight. Thank you for that. Wow, that right there was worth the whole interview. I mean, we just need to remember that every day, right? So I'll just hit play and replay this interview every day and remind myself that I need to listen more. And we get so caught up in the busyness of this world, and we miss some of the best guidance, which comes when we're still. Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah.
So tell me about how the publishing came about and how you're helping us share our stories.
Well, it came about when my wife and I started our coaching company, so many years ago, 17 years ago. We knew we'd ultimately be writing a book at some point. So we just did a doing business as and a publishing company name. And so we wrote our first book together and didn't really sell many of those. But the second book that I did was called Who Do You Think You Are? Discover the Purpose of Your Life. And I got 10 people from the movie The Secret that I interviewed to be in the book. And pretty much every person in that book, when you read their bio, you'd go, oh, that's who that is, or you would know them. So a lot of those people that I interviewed in that book were the best-selling authors, the top speakers in the world, and the top marketers in the world. And so I identified the ones that I had seen had the most success with that and asked them if they would mentor me and when we could do it and how much they would charge me. And each and every one of them said, you know what, there are two different types of people in the world, talkers and doers, and you, my friend, are a doer. So are you still recording? Because this was right after an interview that I had recorded. I said, yes. And they said, okay, here you go. And so they told me everything that I needed to do to create a best-selling book, to use it to get on stage, to use it to get clients, to, everything that I would ever need to know. All the top, the greats in the world freely gave me what I needed to do. So I just took notes, implemented, and that book, the Who Do You Think You Are, was an international bestseller. 2 weeks before the book came out, About Life Purpose, Oprah held up Eckhart Tolle's book and made it the topic of the world, the number one book in the world, and it was about life purpose. Woohoo! So Amazon has that algorithm that says, hey, if you bought that book, you'll love this book. And so my book just blew up. It just went everywhere. And because of the same algorithm, the first book that I'd wrote with my wife, a relationship book, was also on the bestseller list. And this was back in the day when there wasn't like a million subcategories in Amazon. It was like only on the front page, they had the top 100 books of all books in the world. And that was called the bestseller list. It was all the top 100 books in the world. So we were right up underneath Eckhart Tolle at number 2, and then number 12 was our relationship book. So just unbelievable turnaround. So speed it up, Keith. So I then started teaching other people how to write their book. And then some of those people asked us if we would publish them, which made me think, hey, I know how to do a bestseller for me, but can I do that for someone else? So I did that for 2 Australian men authors who I'd helped them write their books. They had international bestsellers. Now I had 4. And then my mentor, dear friend Jack Canfield, said, once you've had 4 international bestsellers, you're a publishing company, so you may want to start publishing some of these books from all the incredible people that you're helping to write them. And so we stepped into that, and we've been in the publishing business ever since. So we're like a medium-sized, full-service publishing house. No startup by any means, but have no intention of being as huge as HarperCollins. We kind of like it where we're at. We work with people that are divinely guided to us, and we publish books that make a difference. So you have to feel better when you put it down than when you picked it up, or it's not in our catalog. And so we just have met the most incredible people over the years, and helped them to get their mission and their message out to the world. And that's how we got into the publishing.
Well, I'm excited to have you on the show, and our next podcast, we're going to have another one of your authors. So I'm enjoying getting to connect with your authors and hear their stories and talk with them about their stories. That's where I get to play. So thank you for what you're doing.
You're welcome.
Well, we've about talked up the show. So at this point, I guess I'd like to conclude with asking you if there's something you'd like to leave our listeners with, a parting thought.
Absolutely. Here is what I want you who are hearing the sound of my voice right now to know, and that is you make a difference in this world. You make a difference, and people forget to tell us that because they assume that we already know we're making a difference in their lives. So the people that we love, they forget to tell us. But the truth is that you may have saved a life today just because you looked at somebody and said hi, and that person, they didn't feel seen. And when you saw them, they said, oh my goodness, they saw me. Well, maybe if I left the planet, my family would miss me. Maybe, who knows what they said as they talked themselves into not taking their life that day just because you said hello. Like, you wouldn't know that because they didn't tell you. So for all the people who have forgotten to tell you over the years that you make a difference on this planet, I want to tell you for them. I want to be a stand for them and tell you that you make a difference, a profound difference in this world, and it would not be the same without you. So thank you for being the gift of you.
Wow. I think that's like our number one parting thought ever. That was spectacular. Yay. Thank you for that. What welcome. A powerful message from a powerful guy. Thank you so much for being on the show today, and I look forward to connecting with you further in the future.
Excellent. It's been a blessing. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening to the show. Let us know what you thought. We love your feedback at journeyofpossibilities.com. We'll see you next time on Exploring Possibilities.